Hey everybody, welcome to that Tom Clancy show. What is today's date? It is Wednesday, the 10th of June in the year 2020. The craziness that just won't seem to stop. Um, Today I'm joined by a guest because I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but this is kind of just becoming a guest show. And just as a quick, not to hold up my guest, but there's going to be a second episode this week. So, today I'm joined by an indie developer that you may or may not have heard of, hopefully the former, but if the latter, you're in for a bit of a treat. His day job involves work on Sunken Spectre and The Dark Side Detective, but just a couple of weeks ago, he teased us with Eldritch House. Bits and pixels, may I present Paul Conway.
Hello there. How's it going?
Hey, Paul. It is so good to have you here. Paul is a black and white pixel image, which is in keeping with his wonderful artwork. So, thank you for joining us all the way from lovely, scenic Galway, Ireland. I know that my garage is not quite as probably nice as a seaside town in the lovely Emerald Isle, but I make do with what I got.
It's got a lovely low poly aesthetic, so I'm sold.
Oh, nice. Well, I'm glad that we can have that working for you. So as I mentioned, Eldritch House was the game that you presented on hashtag Pitch a Game last month. Believe you said it was Agatha Christie meets Hellboy. You had me at Hellboy.
Yeah, it's a fine mix of different ideas kind of stuck together. I wanted to kind of explore kind of like mysteries. There's my son.
Hello.
He's going goodbye now.
Well, it was nice.
So yeah, yeah, it was very brief, but he'll probably come back later. So yeah, it's a mix of different ideas, but I kind of wanted to find a way to do a game which kind of stood out visually, but also was kind of in the spirit of lots of different things, which I kind of like. I like horror movies and ghost stories, and I love what Mike Mignola has done with Hellboy in terms of kind of occupying that world, but in a sort of bizarre sci-fi space. So it's kind of
I love
melding of
Hellboy
those two.
so much.
Oh, it's so good. And when I kind of decided to kind of sort of explore this kind of comic style, which kind of is very similar to Mike Mignola's work, I got to reread all of Hellboy. I had the kind of the omnibus art collection here, so kind of from start to finish, I read through it again, which is really good.
You can't see it, but my bookshelf off camera has the entire collection of Hellboy graphic novels as well.
Oh, very good.
Oh yeah,
It's wonderful stuff.
it really is. I just wish that they could finally figure out how to adapt it into a decent movie.
I did like the Del Toro movies. They are different to the comics, and I'm quite happy to accept them as being different. But I did enjoy them. They had a certain flavor to them, which was quite enjoyable, which a lot of movies don't seem to have.
See, I really enjoyed the first one, but the problem for me is that so the first one's effectively like a supernatural buddy cop movie, right?
Yeah.
And the primary problem with so many buddy cop movies, with the exception of the Lethal Weapon series, is that in sequels, the people tend to forget lessons that were learned in the first one. And in Hellboy 2, it feels like all of that development in the camaraderie built between Jeffrey Tambor's character and Hellboy, and then also Agent Myers, got completely thrown out the window for, I don't know.
Yeah, I understood the use of his character in the first movie. That he was essentially an avatar for the audience who weren't used to Hellboy. Sort of in the world and kind of been introduced to it. But he did kind of, by the nature of the movie, he did become part of the team by the end of it. So I know they made that lovely joke of him being sort of sent to Alaska in the second movie, but I kind of felt he should have stuck around. He had earned his place to be part of that movie universe.
No, he absolutely had. And it's just, but we're not here to talk about Hellboy, but I'll gladly talk about Hellboy all day long, um, because it is such an interesting universe for stories and visually too. Um, I always, when the first movie came out, I was a huge fan of it, and I mean, I still am to this day. And I even like the recent adaptation, which definitely has its flaws, um, but isn't a terrible movie.
I enjoyed it. It's a better small screen movie though. Um,
It's. I'm glad it. Let me just say, I'm glad I didn't spend money seeing it in the theaters. Um, but I am happy that I got the opportunity to watch it on the HBO streaming service several months ago. Um, but
yeah,
help, yeah,
its visual effects don't really hold up on the big screen.
yeah,
Um, but watching on small television or well, not cinema sized television across the room, you kind of ignore some of those things. Um, I watched it with a friend of mine who didn't really know much about Hellboy and wasn't into gore, so kind of it's just everybody splattering here and there didn't work for him. But I walked out and enjoyed it, but it just was still a little that kind of gut feeling that just wasn't quite what I wanted it to be.
yeah, yeah. I felt it was trying to adapt too many stories in one go. But you know,
Yeah, he can't remember the actor's name.
David
Jim
Harbour.
Harbour, Dave
Yeah,
Harbour. He done a good job. I think he fit the role well. I'm not sure the makeup looked kind of Hellboy enough for me, but I think he done a good job as Hellboy. And I thought it was well written, but yeah, I agree with you. There was too many different threads from the world of Hellboy kind of crammed together into one story.
yeah. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. We're here talking about Eldritch House. So, of course, there is that Hellboy inspiration. It's definitely evident in the art style that you picked for the game. I will say it also reminded me a great deal of the game Void Bastards, if you're familiar.
Oh, 100%. The Void Bastards was a big inspiration for me. Um, it was like I played a hell of a lot of Void Bastards. I
Oh,
really
yeah.
enjoyed it. I thought it was like of that year's last year came out. Thought it was like just like one of the standout games for me. Um,
That came
because
out
an art,
pretty much exactly a year ago, if memory serves.
I think so, yeah. And it what's interesting is I find myself kind of drawn more to art styles than horsepower, big powerful graphics in games. Um, you could release another, 6 Call of Duties in a row with the graphics getting better each time, and there'd be great games, but that wow or that sort of sense of being drawn into an amazing place just wouldn't be there because I think we've already peaked in terms of like the wow factor of graphics. And in photorealism, I'm sure they'll get better and better and better, but the wow factor just isn't there anymore.
Well, I mean, we
But
did have the Unreal 5 demo several weeks ago running on PlayStation 5 hardware. And while I completely agree with you that to an extent it is always going to be about art style over uh, the style over air quotes substance here when
yeah,
it comes to graphics, because if I want photorealism, I can just open my eyes,
yeah, yeah,
and there's an extent to which when I'm playing a game, I don't necessarily want something photoreal. I want something that is going to transport me into this other world. And it's a bit of a conversation I've been having over the last couple of days, and that's part of why I feel that games like World of Warcraft are as successful as they are, because they have this very well defined art style that builds the credibility and consistency of their game world.
yeah. It just stands on a line of visual escapism that ages well. Also, like the games that tried to be photoreal of that time don't stand up now. Whereas, it just stood at a certain level of detail of cartoonishness and character that sort of definitely emblemized or made iconic sort of what this is what an orc looks like. This is what a dwarf looks like. So you can still go back to vanilla Warcraft now, and it still looks very good.
Yeah. Wonderful message here in chat from my good friend Gav. Hi, Gav. Nobody wants a photoreal Crash Bandicoot. That shit would be terrifying. I want that horror game.
I'm sure there's a market for it.
Yeah, oh man. Yeah, Resident Evil with Crash Bandicoot. Yo, modders. Resident Evil 2 or 3 replacing Mr. X and Nemesis with Crash Bandicoot.
It would probably look something like that, the first Sonic the Hedgehog
God.
from the movie.
Look, man, I'm gonna be honest. I didn't really care. Like if that's the way they wanted to do it for their movie, then that's the way they should do it. But at the same time, like, why are we putting a movie about a blue hedgehog that runs at the speed of sound? Yeah, why is he running around with people?
It's like, I probably normally agree with you, because like it's a 30-year-old IP, and the majority of people who kind of really like that IP, we probably have no interest in what's ostensibly a kids movie. But strangely enough, my son, who you just heard in the stream a few minutes ago, he was at the time completely mad into Sonic the Hedgehog. He'd been playing what's it now? Sonic Forces on the Switch, and got mad into it. I got really into it, and then it's just the movie coming out. He was just blown away that it even existed. Like the real Sonic existed.
Nice.
Strange enough, though, he saw the movie, and almost kind of instantly he kind of just sort of changed what he was interested in at that point. Kind of moved off back to Lego or something like that. I don't know if the movie had something to do with that or not. But he loved the movie when he saw it.
Well, I mean, I'm presuming we're probably around the same age, at least within a few years of each other. And especially because I imagine you grew up with Sonic the Hedgehog and Mario.
Yeah.
And so it's just when we were younger, there was still a whole huge amount of entertainment, but now it's just like, could you imagine trying the old 8-bit Nintendo stuff, trying to contend with an iPad for us? Or
yeah.
Netflix? So I mean, yeah. And real quick, hi Andrew. Sorry. It's just when my friends pop up in chat, I want to say hi. So
hello, Andrew.
Yeah. And for those of you just joining us, this is Mr. Paul Conway. He's works for Spooky Doorway, and we're talking about his cool game, Eldritch House, which was part of last month's hashtag Pitch a Game initiative. So yeah. And then we got distracted talking about Hellboy and Sonic the Hedgehog. I'm gonna blame Gavin. It's all your fault, Gav. But yeah, so it's so you were saying you kind of, with going back to Eldritch House, that you are more interested in art style, and then that you wanted to kind of build something in these worlds that you already had a level of interest in.
Yeah, so you mentioned Void Bastards earlier on, and that was a big inspiration. I kind of, when I was playing it, I just as an artist just started dissecting how the art was put together, and kind of I liked that they kind of alluded towards a Mignola style, but it was very much its own thing, and I kind of figured if I could push that more into that style and that setting, there was kind of something interesting to try there. So I done some early tests and kind of immediately kind of started landing in this kind of this very striking, interesting place that I just wanted to explore more. But as well as that, yeah, just it was a lot of ideas that I wanted to make. So one of the big things with horror games is that there tend to be jump scares, and the stories don't tend to be as important or all that interesting. I'm sure there's exceptions out there, and I don't mean to be saying anybody else's game's bad. Yeah, well, Dead Space, yeah, for sure. But actually, Dead Space is a good example in this conversation, because I didn't want to do a game with jump scares unless the jump scare was earned. And Dead Space is a game that kind of earns its jump scares. There's moments like where you really build up to it, like the giant tentacle coming around the corridor and
Yep.
pulling you down. It isn't just like every couple of seconds that like you get a jump scare and a jump scare. Um, like because eventually too many jump scares that numbs you. You're kind of you get bored of it. And obviously, just I didn't want to do combat. My last game, Demon Pit, was very combat orientated, which is a nice thing to play with. But I kind of wanted to um, go back to exploring stories, and I wanted to explore specifically supernatural kind of mystery, like old movies like I don't know, The Lady in White, or um, I don't know, like even Angel Heart and things like that, like where there's kind of there's a mystery where somebody's approaching it from a very sort of normal way, like as in like they're not, they don't have special powers, they don't have any sort of supernatural abilities or like that. They're just kind of presented with bizarre mystery, but on top of that, there's a layer of supernatural, which just kind of shifts it into that kind of bizarre space. Um, so yeah, that just thought there's lots of things to kind of explore there, visually and also gameplay wise. Um, so it's going to be more of a detective story that kind of slowly brings the character into a more bizarre world. It's kind of like you peel back the layers of an onion. The first reveal brings to something more scary or more unsettling, and so on and so forth, till eventually kind of the whole mystery kind of ends up very much beyond the realm of reality and completely into the supernatural.
So it's almost like some H.P. Lovecraft's kind of this supernatural cosmic horror element as well.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, you want to um, like, so Lovecraft had some great ideas and great settings. I'm not going to take any elements from Lovecraft's work. Um, it's not going to be a Cthulhu Mythos game or anything like that, but it'll have obviously um, some of the hallmarks of his work, and setting, types of characters, sort of general theme. Like sure, even the name is Eldritch House, like that's totally inspired, by Lovecraft.
Yeah. How dare that person who turned out to be pretty much a not very good human do these things that we end up using for generations? Uh,
It's interesting that it informed a lot of how he sort of saw the world, which informed the fiction he made, and then people discovered of his work and has since modified it constantly. Um, I kind of I pity some people who've made games, specifically Lovecraft games, and just quite a backlash online these days about Lovecraft. I'm rightfully so. But like they have games like which have Lovecraft in it or specifically referencing his mythos. But the man doesn't profit from that work anymore, and
yeah.
most people who make those games don't reference any of his let's say political views or eugenics views in what they're doing. They're specifically just referencing elements of his horror.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it is an excellent idea, and it's something that definitely previously had never been seen, and it's something that can be riffed on almost to an extent endlessly. I mean, going back to the Hellboy inspiration, the whole kind of meta plot of the Nazi machinations was this very Lovecraftian uh, story. Just the whole reaching out to these unknowable god type creatures, trying to bring back ancient aliens through the corpse astronauts. Uh, you can tell I really like my Hellboy. Um, before you even start getting into Hellboy's overall meta arc, which has this very kind of interesting uh his story is almost I am a person who is very rarely at a lack for words, and I find myself at a lack for words trying to describe his arc. But
Yeah, and I think for me personally, the more distance I have from reading it, it I think more and more about it, about Hobbi's arc, about that, his decisions he's made, and um, ultimately where he, the decision he makes it finally at the end, and where he ends up. And I read it first. I absorbed it, I enjoyed it, but the thought of that specific arc, and such a long arc as well. Like, he took a long time to write it. Um, yeah, it's very impressive work.
Yeah, and its art style is absolutely beautiful. And that said, you as well as the I forget the name of the studio, but the folks that worked on Void Bastards did a very good job of finding a way to adapt that into a video game setting.
Yeah, the studio is Blue Manchu.
Oh
Um,
yeah, those guys
yeah,
are
they're
cool.
they're really cool. They occasionally like something. If somebody comments saying, in my work saying, "Oh, this looks like Void Bastards," they always seem to sort of pop up and give me a like. So it's kind of nice.
Well,
Yeah,
if you can
it's
get any of them, be like, put in a good word, be like, hey, I know this like wacky American who has this like weird internet show, and you want to be on it. That I wouldn't stop you.
well, I don't know them personally, but if they ever give me a show, I'll definitely drop your name in there. Um,
That said, though,
y-
I
but
actually have to finish that game. Or like finish it. You know.
there's they released a recent expansion pack, which I
Oh,
downloaded but I haven't
son.
played. But you can restart the game with all the expansion pack
Yeah.
stuff in it. But yeah, it's the Mignola art style is uh, the tenets of it being like those strong areas of dark color, and sort of really blocked out light, and not a lot of cross hatching in the details and all. It really lends itself well to kind of being digitized and brought into a 3D space. Um, so I've had a lot of fun trying to figure out how to make the characters sort of stand out in as Mignola style characters or comic book style characters, but also, find a way of kind of getting those dramatic looking scenes where the light describes the area in a very comic book abstracted way, um, but still makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, the if you look at a lot of other comic book artists, like, there's a lot of cross hatching in the work, a lot of detail, and games which copy that. They look quite good. Um, but like Mignola's work, it's very hard to be, like Mignola, which just stands out. Like, I mean, I could look through 1,000 pictures of amazing comic book artists, and I just see one of his black and white images of those, like, just strong, arched and crooked shapes, and doesn't immediately know it's his work. And I'm just so drawn to it.
Well, I don't know if you've been following him recently over since all of the social distancing and quarantining stuff went into effect, but he's been posting drawings of various Pokemon over
Yeah,
the last couple of months.
they're great. He's doing it for a charity, I think. I think he's selling them all.
Oh man, I didn't know that I needed his take on Pokemon until we got it. And
Yeah,
now I need it. Yeah.
yeah, and he done all the Marvel heroes as well, or the classic Marvel heroes. Obviously, there's not. You'd expect him to do Marvel heroes, but they still looked really good. But yeah, the Pokemon were very far out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he is himself just a solid artist. He has good technique and he understands anatomy. So it's just you tell him to draw you, I don't know, Wildcat, and he'll draw you a great Wildcat in his style. You know,
Yeah,
he understands the theory behind it, but then he also has that certain like kind of bonus quality of not just the book knowledge of it, but just that kind of like soul knowledge of what looks good, you know.
yeah. Yeah, there's a lot to be said for, you can draw something or you can capture something, and I think he captures it.
Yeah,
If
and an old comic book artist friend of mine used to say, I can teach anyone to draw, but I can't teach a person to be an artist.
Very true. Yeah, I'd agree with that. There's a certain level you can bring people to, and unless they're looking out for a certain thing, unless they have a certain gift of seeing the world a certain way, yeah, it's you can't make the person, an artist of that quality.
Yeah. Oh, TJ, thank you for the host real quick there. And hi, Brian. Um, yeah, but I when we were talking about getting you on the show, you were slightly hesitant, I believe is a good word, because I wanted to say Void Bastards there for a moment, but Eldritch House is still very early and it's still a side project.
Yeah, well, officially as of the last week or two, it's we've brought it on board as a full-time Spooky Doorway project.
And you
Uh,
didn't tell me.
well, we were only having a big meeting about it today. So I kind of realized, like I made the game for a lot of reasons, like a lot of personal reasons, in the backgrounds outside of the studio. I wanted to explore those old comics and old movies, and my father had passed away last year, and
I'm so
these
sorry
are
to hear that.
things. Well, thank you very much. But these are things that like I enjoyed with him. So I kind of wanted to sort of just in a way abstractly I was kind of grieving through making just exploring these things again, and I was kind of building this project kind of around kind of just looking back sort of in my child's eye these things that he introduced me to, and it's since evolved from that. But it was kind of hard to let go to start a personal project. But I started to like notice like it was just getting a lot of attention, a bigger attention than other projects we're working on, like full-time gigs we're working on Spooky Doorway. Um, and I've some publishers interested in funding it and turning it into a bigger
Wow.
game. Um, and I just wasn't in a position on my own in my spare time uh, to fully develop the project into a demo of a quality enough level to sort of bring it to the publishers. Obviously, as well, I have a full-time job running a studio. I don't want to be working in my spare time on another game that's being funded by someone else. So it made sense just to bring it on board with my Spooky Doorway family, and get their brains in on top of it as well. Like I work mainly with Dave and Tressa, who live on the other side of Ireland, and they're great writers and designers and developers, and they help me. I have this big smorgasbord of ideas and all these things I want to do, and they've over the last 2 weeks we've been tempering it down into kind of this fine point of like what do we really want it to be.
Yeah.
Uh,
That kind of thing
uh,
you can really only do with a team.
yeah, like I mean, if I had money and all the time in the world, I could probably bring it to where I wanted it on my own. But it's going to be better with other great people working
Yeah.
on it with you.
Yeah, I mean, that's the wonderful thing about teamwork is that there are things that other people are going to see that the solo creator, just can't. Because we're either too close to the project or our brains just aren't really wired that way, you know.
Yeah, and there's also just creative bounce. You throw an idea and it comes back to you richer.
Yeah.
Um, and even like your own ideas, even just throwing it at somebody, even the act of voicing it and trying to put it in a way to be explained and communicated, you end up realizing how bloated it is, and you learn to cut off a lot of the things that get in the way of what you're really looking to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I fully understand that. I dabble in game development when I'm not in my weird virtual garage here. So I fully understand on that perspective. Um, but speaking of Spooky Doorway, you are the CEO of this fancy independent studio.
Well, that makes it sound like I have a giant office and I don't know, a Lamborghini or something. But the truth is,
You strike me more as like a Maserati guy.
a Bugatti, to be fair.
Got
Um,
to get that
the,
Veyron.
but not really. CEO really just means I just do all the emails and contracts. I'm more the art guy.
Okay.
Yeah, we're a small studio. The core team of us is myself, Dave, and Tressa. So there's three of us, and we bring on contractors when we need to expand, and then between projects we scale back down to the three of us. Because we work on modest, smaller projects. We're best known as a studio for The Dark Side Detective,
Hmm.
which is a spooky comedic point and click adventure. It's essentially uh, a buddy cop point and click game where you investigate ghosts and monsters. And the first one was just this random game that kind of came about in a game jam, and we sort of built the studio around it. It's been relatively successful for us, and we're working on the sequel to it now. Um, and yeah, we kind of learned, how to work together as a team, and learn our strengths. Like Darkside is kind of has some of the design philosophy of the art style of Eldritch House by just being sort of subtly different to make it stand out.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
so we made this
also,
game.
if memory serves from when I did my research for this interview and show, is that it's also a pixel art as well.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm known mainly as a pixel artist. I kind of a lot of my career was doing pixel art, and Darkseid is this very low resolution styled game, where the characters are so low resolution they don't even have faces or eyes. They're just tiny little, flesh colored squares for faces. Um, it initially kind of kicked off, as I said, in a game jam, and on the day of the game jam, there just wasn't enough time to, figure out a fancy art style to work with, and I just kind of came with do really low resolution and then add some high definition color on top of it, and I kind of came up with this sort of nice, semi-modern, semi-classical sort of look to the style. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it kind of turned the whole game into sort of a visual icon. This is what a room looks like as an icon. This is what a car looks like as an icon. Um, and yeah, we just posted some screenshots and the original 4-screen terrible demo online, and it got a lot of interest. People really seemed to like it.
Nice.
Um, so then, yeah, over several months, I think it was nearly 2 years. In their spare time, on top of because we all worked in game dev in other areas, we just put this game together, and launched it. And yeah, it turned into kind of a moderate hit for us, enough to kind of to fund kind of setting up the studio, going full time, making our own games. Um, so that, for us, that was a big success. We're not quite up there with you know Call of Duty figures or anything like that.
Well, who is?
Who is
Yeah.
Minecraft maybe, um,
Oh god,
but it
Minecraft is what. Like if I could, oh my god, like yeah, everybody would love to be making Minecraft numbers, except for
everybody
Grand Theft
tried to
Auto
make
5.
Minecraft. Oh well, yeah, of
Yeah,
course,
Grand
yeah.
Theft Auto 5 is fine.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, we kind of so we formed a studio on just making this sort of silly little abstracted little adventure game, and kind of we ended up making, like, I'd like to take all the credit for, like, of the art did it, but it
Well,
was really
please
just
do. No.
well, I will, since Dave been Tracy out here. No, like, it was just some amazing writing and some really good design work. Made a very modest game into something that had a lot of heart and had all the effort in the right places for a game made for no money. Essentially, it had all the effort in the right places, and yeah, we won a few awards and gained enough fan base that we kickstarted a sequel, which is just about finished. We're working on that kind of a lot at the moment.
How are you guys doing on
Um,
that? Just out of curiosity.
yeah, we're nearly finished on it. We're at an interesting phase, like, where I'm still doing a lot of the art, but a lot of the design is in place and you can play it all. But the it isn't, you're walking around, what's essentially like a stickman drawing version of some of the game, and the rest of it's really polished and looking. So unfortunately, one thing which has gone wrong for us there was a global pandemic.
Yeah.
You might have heard of it.
I've heard a thing or two about it.
When you get out of your garage.
Yeah. I mean,
But
hey,
yeah,
it's hermetically sealed. I don't have to worry about anyone coming in. Who left my garage door open?
no,
No.
I know. But yeah, it's one thing that we benefited from on the first game was being able to get the game out to local events, to get to see people play the game and figure out the experience they were having and how to improve it, how to spot, like, when people were getting frustrated with the experience, and how to sort of smooth off those edges. Um, so that's a bit that we're kind of behind on now. And this one's that we just, because we can't bring it out anywhere. So we're going to do some virtual playthroughs with a lot of people soon to kind of just figure that out. But as it's going, it's nearly done, and I think it's as good as the first one, just made better. It's bigger as well. I think the art is better, or the style is more refined. But ultimately, it's more the same.
Nice. Well, of course, all the luck with it. But I mean,
Thank
at
you.
least you're Irish, so chances are you already have it all. So, or is that not a saying over in Ireland? The luck of the Irish.
We're aware of it, but it's not something we don't feel particularly lucky on the rainy days here.
No. Yeah, I can understand that. I don't feel particularly lucky because the city is tearing up sidewalks outside of my house right now. So
Yeah, that's a
that
thing.
was a fun wake up call. It's not my sidewalk yet. Um, but
Right.
On top of that, let's see. Any other big questions I have for you? And then, of course, as always, chat. If you have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and throw them in there. I do have the ability to read sometimes. Today is one of them. So, uh, so you started from this game jam game with your friends. Uh,
Yeah.
from that, so the piece of advice I'm hearing from that is. Start with a game
Um. So,
like an idea that works as a game, I guess.
well, I suppose we were able to react to like we made something small. We made something that worked to our strengths, and we also saw that it had a good reaction online. We saw people were into this and were able to react accordingly. Um, if you think you've got a great idea and you're posting some screenshots out of it and you're not getting any reaction, spending 2 years on that, you're still not going to get reaction on it. It's likes do not equal sales. If you get 1,000 likes on your image, that does not mean 1,000 people are going to buy your game, but it does indicate that people will stop at least to take a look at your game. Um, so we kind of noticed that with Dark Sides, that we had something that kind of just had it was bright and shiny enough in the right ways that people liked it, and the demo was positively received as well. Yeah, bright images on screen. If people like it and we got a demo available, the bright images will send the people to the demo, and there you can get some information. People playing your game, you can get them to follow you on social media and all kind of sort of build your following as you go along. Um, we did have the benefit that all of us have worked in games before, so we have experience in making games. Um, but I think the biggest experience, the most valuable experience that we had going in is that we'd worked on enough projects to know what was the right scale for us. If you're working in your spare time and you're trying to make World of Warcraft, you're never going to make it. Um, yeah, but
I
like,
have mentioned World of Warcraft more in the last 2 days than I think I have in the last 2 years.
well, it's a calling. You need to go back and play it.
No, no, I don't. I played roughly from release to about the first content patch of Mists of Pandaria, and then I've come back briefly uh for Legion. I think was the next expansion pack. Or no, Warlords of Draenor, and I came back for Legion. Um, but I'm just done.
Well, I don't invest myself in large games like that. Um, it's going to sound self-important, but I have enough things to be doing. I don't have 100, 200 hours to put into a game anymore. I actively seek out games which are shorter now because I like um, short or condensed experiences. Don't get me wrong, if a game is good, I'll happily put 10, 15, 20 hours into it. But I kind of like games that can be done in like 2 or 3 sittings. Like a book, you pour through a good book and you put it down, and you have you've consumed it, and you kind of get to sit back and enjoy the memory of it and what you've taken from it. Whereas a game like Warcraft takes a lot out of you, but it doesn't necessarily give you a lot back. Or I suppose arguably just the friendships you can make along the way um, with the people you play with. Um, but you're putting a lot of work into something that literally you don't walk away with, like that golden sword you won in that mission. You don't necessarily get to keep a golden sword in the real world.
No, it's probably for the best though.
Possibly, yeah.
Ah, yeah, I don't miss World of Warcraft at all. That said though, I'm a big Destiny fan, so uh, yeah. I mean, I don't know how much total time I have logged between Destiny, and Destiny 2, but at least on Steam, I'm sitting at since it transitioned over last year. yeah, last year when Shadowkeep came out. I've logged about 500 hours with it. So, um,
Wow.
well, look, man, Bungie makes some of the best shooters hands down.
Oh, for sure. They're like they are top tier developers.
Yeah, and it's just the game just feels so good. And that's the reason why I keep going back to it. It's like I can play their missions over and over again because the way that the game plays for me is reward enough. Similar to like Respawn. Those guys make the best campaigns. It's just the truth. I mean, Titanfall 2 is one of the best first person shooters of all time, in my opinion. Um, and then Jedi Fallen Order was so good. Just yeah,
I didn't get to play Jedi. I didn't have time when it came out, and
I can understand that because it's not huge, but it's an investment.
yeah,
And
well,
it can be huge if you let it be.
yeah, it kind of seemed like the right sort of game for me though, because it was campaign, wasn't an endless amount of content, and it could be done like in a couple of nights or a week or two. Um, so like after I finish making games during the day and put my son to bed, that's a game I can kind of invest in. Um, but unfortunately, just I think just so many so many other games came out and so many other work things were happening. I just didn't get to play it when it came out.
Yeah,
Uh,
I can
a
fully
lot of people were
understand that.
a lot of people were championing it because it was a game which didn't have microtransactions or wasn't a game as a service. So there was kind of a rising on the internet saying, just play it because it's a game you always said you wanted.
It was a game that I didn't know that I wanted. I mean, aside from the single player kind of stuff, but like the original marketing for it, I was like, whatever. And then it was discounted on Steam, and I was like, yeah, sure, I'll pay $35 for it, and I was very pleased with my purchase. So, it's a. I think the best way I can explain it would be if Metroid Prime and Dark Souls had a baby that understood that difficulty sliders are a good thing.
Yeah, there's a great debate about difficulty all the time, and I'm a great believer in play it however you want to play it. Um,
But
not,
I like you already.
but like one for us, like actually as an indie developer, there's a big importance of because like if our game is difficult, if you get fed up of our game and it's difficult in the wrong way, um, and you don't like that, like you can either jump on the internet and look for a walkthrough, or go to Steam and buy another or play another game you bought for like $1 2 years ago that you haven't played yet. There's just so much content. So if difficulty is something getting in the way of your audience, let them get past it. Like if your game allows for it, unless your game is like a challenged, an online shooter or has a
Yeah.
leaderboard. Like, but if your game if people are there for the story, let them be there for the story.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think the argument always comes up around Dark Souls for very good reasons. Because one, Dark Souls is an amazing game, and it also happens to be very difficult.
I'd stand by that. Like Dark Souls is meant to be difficult.
But
And
I feel that there's a way that you can make a game challenging, while still maintaining its core. You
yeah, I'd
know,
stand by that.
yeah,
Um,
because uh, generally speaking, I mean, just use a real simple example here. The first Halo game, right? So it starts out really kind of simple. You're just fighting all of the low tier enemies in pretty simple environments. But then by the end of the game, you have hopefully, regardless of the difficulty level you're playing on, learned enough about the game and how it all works to be fighting top tier enemies and also facing the flood at the same time.
yeah, and Bungie did such a good job in it that like players have been brought along at such a sort of simple difficulty curve, or gliding difficulty curve, like they get to that point without naturally get to that point, I suppose. I
Yeah.
want to say, um, it's not like you're suddenly in all these in this level where all these things are killing you. Like you've been introduced to these things separately, and they've been layered slowly on top of each other until eventually you get to that point where like you've earned the right to fight all these things at once, and that's why you're able to do it. The challenge is still there. It's just it's you're kind of always getting past just like kind of seat your pants, just there's a skin of your fingertips, you kind of get to the end of the level type thing.
Yeah.
um but
If
like
you guys hadn't figured out, I'm a huge Bungie stan. Uh, uh, yeah, I love Bungie. I'm not gonna lie.
they're
So,
very good.
yeah, but I do.
were,
Yeah,
were you disappointed when they left the Halo series? I know you got Destiny out of it, but were you
like
disappointed when they moved on?
I am more disappointed that Halo continued than I am that Bungie left Halo.
I would
Because
agree.
yeah, because I feel like I talked about this previously on the show, um, a few weeks ago on a non guest episode. Uh, Halo is a traditional epic. Like, and I mean, I don't mean like Lawrence of Arabia epic, like this huge sweeping narrative, which it is, but I mean in the sense of the go- the goal of the game is not so much to beat the Covenant, but to reshape the world. And in true epics, the epic hero is not meant to the epic hero is the last bit of the old world, and they're supposed to be left behind. And so I feel that at the conclusion of Halo 3, where we had this wonderful ending that did a great job of bringing everything full circle, while at the same time still feeling as though it moved forward, uh, leaving the Master Chief outside the galactic rim in that state of stasis, that idea of him now as a guardian angel, no longer just the super soldier. Like I feel that that was the perfect ending. And if you're going to continue, because he changed the world, it was no longer for him.
And he ultimately earned his rest.
Yeah,
If you,
I
yeah,
feel that this new Halo series would have been better focused if it had like picked up with the Arbiter, because now the Arbiter is very much that Master Chief character of this new world. You
yeah,
know,
okay, I accept that. Yeah,
and I think that that would have also led for just more interesting storytelling. But and it's a
I
character that we had spent two games getting to know as well.
yeah, but I'd probably would have leaned more towards Halo 3 being the end of it and not have any more Halo. Or if you're going to do more Halo, do them within the universe of Halo, but not following the story of the Master Chief, or
Yeah,
even the Arbiter, away from that story.
yeah.
I suppose like what the Mandalorian is doing for Star Wars now.
Oh my god, that show is so good.
But it was so good because it wasn't following any of the mainline story anymore. It was just you were getting to enjoy the universe of Star Wars without being on that the massive hero's journey.
Yeah. Oh, Melee, thanks for the follow. Yeah, God, that show is so good. And I mean, it also did very much follow a hero's journey in its own way too. It's just that
Yeah,
the call to action was much less literal than it was in previous Star Wars installments. I
yeah,
mean, with the original Star Wars, I mean, it literally is basically a phone call.
yeah,
He's sitting there tooling around with R2D2, and he stumbles upon the message for Princess Leia.
yeah.
Like,
It's not even a phone call; it's an answering machine.
yeah, he's just like he walks into her apartment and presses play on the machine. Like, oh, what's this all about? Oh, why is this thing only looping the first couple things? I know a Kenobi. Let's go see if I can insert myself into this. So, um, that's a I do love Star Wars. So, but yeah, I feel that I pretty much have nothing else on my list of questions, which are on a one-dimensional object, which our viewers can't see. I figured I can. So it's a small change I made to the show when I had Liam on. Hi, Liam. A week and a half ago. which is that I made a couple of planes and slapped my notes on a simple texture on those. And because it's a plane, and as you and I know, and I'm basically telling everybody every time I do the show, it's an object that you can't see from the opposite side. So it makes an easy way for me to cheat and look like I know what I'm doing.
Very clever.
You know, the wheels are always turning. So, well, that means it's time for us to get into the 5 questions. All right. So, you know the drill. 5 questions, nothing to do. Oh, and hi Haley. I'm doing well. Sorry. The last follow is a friend of mine who used to work with me at Starbucks. Have this business pretending you know what you're doing. Yes, Brian, I am so good at pretending I know what I'm doing. So this is time for the 5 questions. So you know the drill. And for those of us who are just joining us, the 5 questions are a series of, what do you know, 5 questions that I write up before the show that have slightly to do with my guest, but are primarily there as a means for me to ask completely stupid things. So, number one of these things is going to be eliminated completely from existence forever. Bacon or coffee, and you have to make the call. Which one disappears?
Well, that's simple. It's coffee.
I hate you.
Well, I don't drink coffee, so I haven't drank coffee for about 10 years. And while my life was initially terrible when I didn't drink coffee, I've moved on from coffee. And but
Looking
but
at my watch
probably
here, I haven't had coffee for probably about 2 hours.
oh well, try 10 years.
Well, I not to one up you here, sir, but I quit smoking 12 years ago.
That is impressive. I quit smoking 3.5 years ago, and
Dude, quitting smoking sucks.
it was, and I think
Like,
you're always a smoker.
yeah,
Um,
you are.
you're just a smoker who's not smoking.
9 years ahead of you in the future. You are. So
I've done well. I did well, but
okay, yo, and seriously, congrats.
thank you.
Because yeah, it's not easy. And real quick, everybody, brief pontification soapbox moment from me. If you aren't a smoker who has quit, don't get on smokers about quitting. You don't know how hard it is. Give them a break. They know they need to quit. Let them figure it out for themselves and let them do the work. So
Yeah, for
that's my
me, I had to
soapbox.
be at the right time, the right place. I just had to be in the right headspace, and I had tried several times before, all failed, and then when I was eventually in the right headspace, it just happened automatically.
Dude knows what he's talking about. Okay, so number 2, if you could go back in time and talk to your younger self, would you use that opportunity to mess with your younger self?
Um, yeah, I'd probably tried to tell him I'm from a future where I survived a laser war or something like that. Um, I definitely tell them to invest in Google and all that kind of thing, and that would definitely offset the war that we all survived. Um, but I tell them I was from a future, yeah, that everybody died. Even I tell them even all the dogs in the world died. That'd make him scared, and and he definitely invest in Google then and make me a billionaire.
Nice. I appreciate that. Why is Jaws the best movie of all time?
Why is Jaws the best movie of all time? Um, See, now I could give you a silly answer, but like it legitimately is up there in my top 10 movies. But why is it one of the best movies of all time, if not the best? Well, it's the best movie, if nothing else, just for Quint's story about the sharks, about people. The story tells middle
Oh
of,
yeah,
just for that one scene.
that is one of the
I think,
great film monologues of all time.
and it's one of those scenes where lots of movies don't do anymore because it serves the character over the story. And most movies try to move plot forward, where that was a movie that took a moment to serve the characters, which then made all their actions, those characters came together in that moment, and we saw a bit a bit deeper into Quint's soul, and the damaged man he was, and his actions later on make more sense, and you feel for him, but also you're angry at how he's gonna jeopardize lots of things now. So
Th-
for that one scene,
that's an
I'll
amazing answer. You score
yeah.
5 points.
Oh, thank you very much.
There are I don't know why you have points. You get 3 bottle caps. I don't know. What is your favorite dinosaur?
um Tough question. um I'm going to say, um Velociraptor, because the reality was they were really small, but they've just got a reputation now that they're actually cool and awesome and bigger than people. But reality was they're about the size of a small dog.
Well, even at the size of a small dog, they're super cool. Like imagine a velociraptor dog pet.
Yeah, or imagine being chased by a swarm of them.
Yeah. Also
Yeah.
quite frightening. That whole would you rather fight 100 duck-sized horses or one horse-sized duck? And it's 100 duck-sized horses because, well, ducks are dinosaurs. And dinosaurs are frightening
Yeah.
when they're the
Do you,
size of horses.
do you remember that Pixar movie Bugs?
Yes.
And they were being chased by, it's like a sparrow or something, that really small tiny
Oh
little
my
bird.
God. That was so great.
But from their perspective, like, it's roaring at them. It's like a giant dinosaur. Like, it's fantastic scene.
Yeah, we have from Psychic Software that's called a cat, and I presume that's in reference to a velociraptor the size of a dog. And I'm
Yeah.
not going to disagree with that, as my pet velociraptor is sitting roughly over there off
I
camera.
actually know Sam, who is Psychic Software, and I've
Oh,
seen his
hi,
dog,
Sam.
which is a lovely little dog. So I understand that he understands the difference between dogs and cats. So yeah, thumbs
I
up to
mean,
Sam.
I understand the difference too. I have 4 cats.
But the true difference, whereas like a dog will love you, where cats will plot to kill you and take your life savings.
Oh yes, I know. I grew up with a dog. I did not grow up with cats.
That's why you're still alive.
Yeah. Every day that I continue to live it just makes me that much tougher. All right. So that was that one. That was that one. So we're on to the last question. And this is quite possibly the most important. Are you
Go for it.
currently hiring virtual robot people? I'm asking for a friend.
No. um,
Well, it's been lovely having you here. No,
yeah, it depends on your soft skills.
my soft skills
what
are people skills. So how would you rate those after this about hour or so of conversation?
I'd say you're lovely, but generally we tend to hire people with elbows
Look,
and shoulders.
tracking elbows is hard. I'm working on it, but it involves a lot of math.
Hey, well, Valve didn't even put elbows on into Alex, so
Well, it's because you didn't. Well, they also didn't add a body either, but for very good reasons. Because doing inverse kinematics with only 3 points of reference is very hard.
is very
So
hard. Yeah.
when I did my first episode of this, when like rebooted the whole podcast thing, I did a version where I had elbows running off of 3-point tracking, and it's not horrible. But when it's not moving the way you know your elbows are moving, it is really disorienting and terrible.
Yeah, I heard that Valve had actually tried that with Alex. That it was actually causing nausea and disorientation for players. But I don't know. That's the next market, is VR elbow pads.
Yeah, well, I took my old HTC Vive controllers and I hacked their one of the files in them, and just changed them over from Vive controller to Vive tracker. So
Okay.
yeah, so it's a nice. It's a 5-minute hack, and it's easily undoable.
All right.
So
Very good.
but all right. So that's been my 5 questions. That's anything else there? Real quick before we go, Paul, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at DoomCube. So that's DoomCube. And anything I'm working on generally is either tweeted there or retweeted there.
Cool. Well, I think it goes without saying, but thank you very much for being on the show. It's been a pleasure to sit down and chat with you this week, and to talk the finer points of shooter design and Hellboy.
Yeah. And it's been lovely talking to you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, of
And it's
course.
been nice being in a virtual couch for an hour.
Yeah, it's not a bad couch. I specifically chose green for the mannequin for you because you're Irish. It definitely isn't just the green mannequin that's been sitting there the whole time I've been doing the show.
It's also a
Just
bit
for you.
Master Chiefy.
It's a pre-made asset that I got from an asset store thing, because all I made was my head.
Which looks a bit like the Master Chief, by the way.
That is there is some Master Chief inspiration to it. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna lie.
You did
Uh,
admit to being a bungee stand, so I get it. I get
well,
it.
eventually, there's a guest who's not coming up anytime soon, but he's on the long run. It's the guy who actually made the art that I keep on the back wall. He made the model that originally inspired the head, and when I
Oh,
have him on, it's going to be up on that wall, so people will
nice.
understand. So, again, thank you very much for being on the show. It was lovely to have you. I look forward to talking with you in the future and talking about our good old Eldritch House. I can't say your Eldritch House. Uh, yeah. So thank you very much for being here. Everyone out there who's been watching, thank you for joining us in this wonderful, crazy day. I know that there's no real rhyme or reason as to when these shows happen. Uh, it will all become apparent very shortly. That said, there will be another episode on Friday with another hashtag Pitch a Game developer, the wonderful Lee Hamoud, who is working on a game called Beckon. You can track him down on Twitter, but we will be here on Friday. I will have the time for you all later on. I promise, I think. Yeah, probably later today because I got to remember. Dude, I have been talking with so many people on this. Like, this isn't to like make me sound important or anything, but I actually had to start a spreadsheet. I hate working in spreadsheets.
You wouldn't like to work in video game production then?
No, no, no. That's why I prefer design. But still lots of spreadsheets there. But thank you all again for joining us. We'll see you next time on that Tom Clancy show. And until then, be safe, drink your vitamins, and always tip your wait staff.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for having me.
All right, and sad marionette time.